Hey everyone, my name is Ben Heisch, and today we are reviewing a 50mm f/0.95 lens for the Fujifilm X-mount system. Now, full disclosure, this was sent to me by TTArtisan for the sake of this review. This one in particular was a bit fascinating to me, mainly because of its size and price. At the time of recording this video, it's coming in around the sub $250 mark, which for a, f/0.95 lens is pretty darn quick. And as you can also see, even on a very small camera body like the XE4, it fits on here pretty darn well. So as far as styling and just overall use goes, I think it fits really, really well with the Fujifilm aesthetic, whether you have a black camera body or a silver one like this. I think it just looks really good on this system. It has a kind of vintage 70s kind of vibe. It's definitely not exactly going to pass the balance test here, but that being said, it's still a very, very small lens overall. It's definitely heavy, which I don't think is a bad thing necessarily. It feels very solid, very kind of metallic. You get close focus down to 0.5 meters. The manual focus ring here is very smooth. And you get these little ridges that don't actually stick up. They kind of indent into the lens here, and that's what kind of helps you to focus and provides that, kind of ring look that you get going on this thing. The aperture ring here is clicky, but not overly clicky, so I've definitely kind of moved it on accident before. I usually would rather just have things be more clicky, but that being said, it wasn't that big a deal. At times I would stop down to 1.0 or 1.1, but it wasn't, that huge of an issue overall. Also to note, if you are thinking that you're gonna get kind of like a Nock Deluxe kind of look, these Fujifilm cameras are, APS-C sized. So while I've heard that these can sort of cover a full frame sensor, especially here on a Fujifilm, you're getting a 1.5 times crop, which gives you roughly, like a 75mm equivalent. But that being said, a 75mm f1.4-ish kind of equivalent in terms of the look is not necessarily a bad thing at all. So all those things are great and more than worth the price of admission. But how does the image quality actually hold up? Let's jump into that.
Train right on out this town, thinking of a place, erasing states and miles between us now. I am on my way, and by the time the night is through, when I hold you, it's like nothing missing. When I hold you, it's like nothing's missing. I don't need anything, I don't need anything. I just wanna wake up where you are. I don't need anything, I don't need anything. I just wanna wake up where you are. 'Cause when I hold
at 0.95, if you have a pretty contrasty scene, you are going to run into kind of some haziness and some issues. You run into a pretty darn good amount of chromatic aberration. longitudinal chromatic aberration where, you have some out of focus elements in the foreground and then it moves to the background. You definitely get a lot of color fringing there as well. And at kind of like a mid-range portrait, like a full body and stuff, the bokeh is definitely more of a vintage feel to it. It's not very smooth. It's kind of a little bit distracting, but close up at kind of more of a close focus, you do get pretty good bokeh performance and it looks pretty nice. And I'll say for some pretty close up kind of headshot kind of portraits, it does a pretty good job. You do get that soft feel of, skin tones and things like that. Colors out of this were great, no issues there. It's mainly just, if you want to shoot this thing at 0.95, it's pretty limited to what you actually want out of it. If you want something that's going to be sharp and crisp, especially for something like a product, this is probably not the lens for you. But if you want a very, very inexpensive lens that gives you a 75-ish millimeter equivalent and kind of like a portrait headshot kind of shallow depth of field lens on a budget for the Fujifilm system, I think it's a really, really fun lens. Definitely not one that would be kind of like my primary focal length, something I'm going to rely on quite a bit as a professional. But for its use and for the cost, I think that a lot of photographers could find this to be a sort of fun lens to toss in their bag. So do I recommend this lens? Yes and no. If you're looking for a lens with great image performance, you're just not going to get it out of here. Obviously, going with something more modern and something that, like the Fujicrons or something like that would be a great step in the right direction there. But if you want something that gives you kind of that nice manual focus experience, gives you a shallow depth of field, gives you kind of like more of a portrait-ish focal length, you're sitting pretty good here. And I think it's definitely something fun to go with, especially for the price point. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any more questions about this, leave them in the comments down below. Lots more photography content coming on a at least weekly basis on here. So subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all on the next one.